Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Since 1952, this bumpy Floridian masterpiece has been the home of American sports car racing. Many drivers will insist that conquering the famous 12 hours of Sebring is tougher than the 24 hours of Le Mans. Fangio, Foyt, Andretti, Moss and McNish have all won at Sebring, but who will take victory today? Welcome to the Precision Racing League GTE series, live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. I'm Peter Mackay and I'm delighted to be joined in the booth by GSRC's very own Flying Finn, Ossian Puaka. Behind the scenes is our director Joe Peak, using the excellent cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But don't take my word for it, let's cut to our GSRC track guide to find out a little bit more about this iconic venue.
Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Home to the 12 hours of Sebring, one of the most grueling tests in endurance racing, this is a track which has earned a fearsome reputation among drivers. The circuit itself is located on the southeastern edge of the city of Sebring, Florida, and was built out of Hendricks Army Airfield shortly after World War II. 3 layouts are currently in use, ranging from 1.7 to 3.7 miles in length. The longest course, which is perhaps the most well-known with it being the one used for the famed endurance race, shockingly still contains portions of the original airfield surface. It's this aspect which has become a signature feature of the track, making it extremely bumpy for racing. Sunset Bend in particular nearly shakes cars apart while they attempt to navigate the high-speed 180-degree corner. As you'd expect for the side of an airfield, there's nearly no elevation change over the course of a lap, but many of the curves are dramatically tall and unforgiving, daring drivers to glance them yet not hit them directly. Thankfully, places to pass are plentiful, including spots like the Hairpin and Cunningham. However, the many fast, sweeping turns creates a dilemma for car setup, since a vehicle that's made too stiff could wind up bottoming out on the onerous bumps. In the end, if you have the wherewithal to withstand the track's rough nature, you're likely to fare well. And since Florida fans almost always show up in huge numbers to witness this test of car and driver, you'll have plenty to impress at this legendary North American road course.
So there you go then, that is the way around this beautiful but bumpy Sebring International Raceway. One of the real jewels in the crown of the sports car racing calendar, Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring. That's the triple crown that we care about in the sports car racing world. Let's take a little look, a little bit more about the finer details of this particular Floridian circuit.
Yes, indeed. It's a pleasure here, Peter, to talk about this track. 6 kilometers long, roughly thereabouts, a bit under 4 miles. And it's a great track, honestly. It's got plenty of tricky technical corners, plenty of bumps also on the main straight, as well as on the first turn and the last turn. And honestly, I quite like it. 17 turns too.
It is an absolute cracker, and as we go through the broadcast, we'll tell you all about the different corner names and some wild and wacky stories about the Sebring International Raceway, including at the Hairpin Bend, where Stirling Moss stopped mid-race to have a Coca-Cola, but we'll tell you more about that during the race. Let's take a look at our championship standings for drivers for the Precision Racing League. Leading at the moment is Abner Acosta on 194 points. Paulo Munoz is 11 points behind, with Bruno Asturi only 13 points behind, and so is Rodrigo Mies. So it's really, really tight at the top there. And fourth is Michael Ross, just 25 points back. So with 2 rounds to go after this, it is anybody's championship. Ozzy, how are the team standings looking right now?
Well, Peter, early on it looked like Level MotorSports was really doing anything but leveling the playing field, but since then it's been getting closer and closer, just like the driver's side. Acosta, Asturi, Acerbo been caught up by Punto CL Racing Blue, Calguin, Mies, and Eisler. RSR eSport by G Performance in third place with Punto CL Racing Red fourth, and L1 eSports rounding out your top 5. And with that, the team points and the driver standings, they're right there. How about the race details? How are we racing out here today, Peter? 1 hour, I'm guessing? 4 cars, maybe?
Yep, we are indeed. You're on the ball tonight, Ozzy, that's for sure. Yes, this is, well, I must be honest, I meant to be impartial, but tonight I'm not going to be. I love sports car racing, particularly GT racing. We've got 4 of the biggest brands in GT racing going toe-to-toe tonight. We've got the Porsche 911 RSR, we've got the Ferrari 488, the incredible Ford GT, and the big battle axe, the BMW M8. 4 completely different cars, very, very closely matched on the timesheets. Sebring is a circuit that puts incredibly unique demands on a car and the driver with its incredibly bumpy surface, and how the drivers have set their cars up and the amount of time that they'll have taken during the week to set those cars up will be absolutely vital here, more than almost any other track. Also worth looking out for the incident points. If a driver locks up any more than 13 incident points, they will be given a stop and go penalty. And in a race as short as 60 minutes, that is a bit of a punishment exercise as well. Also a bonus point for the fastest lap, also and pole position. So we'll need to keep an eye out on that. As always, today's race is brought to you by Simza. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provided many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simmsa.net. That's simza.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by the ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. And well, if you wanted to put the ButtKicker to the test, well, you couldn't pick a better track, Ozzy, than Sebring to put that particular machine to its paces.
No, not at all. I mean, it is, well, you can see it right now here with number 321. That is Paulo Munoz coming to the Sunset Bend, one of the most difficult corners in the world and said to be the most difficult corner in America. Now under the main straight, the old airfield section, and 10 into turn number 1, after which you once again get back to smooth sailing. And as we mentioned earlier, with the championship points being so close, Peter, it's worth mentioning that with Acosta and the guy who's on the pictures, Paulo Munoz, as well as Rodrigo Mies, trying to find the best result possible, and the last race winner, Javi Utreras, now on the screen as well. We have one player missing, one key player missing, and that is Bruno Asturi, who was leading the championship for quite a while, who was really putting a challenge on Abner Acosta. Well, from a collision from the Spa-Francorchamps race, he has been suspended for race number 8 of the championship, and effectively, with him having DNF'd once already this season, that means one of the guys is out of the championship hunt.
Well, that is certainly big news. Thanks for that one, Ozzy. That is, well, it just shows you've got to keep your nose clean. It's not just necessarily being the outright fastest on the track. You've got to be the whole package to compete at this level. Speaking of the level, if you're familiar with iRacing and familiar with driving these cars on this circuit, just take a look at that lap time. 1 minute 55.212, an absolutely incredible pace there. To put in a bit of perspective, that's faster than the IMSA real-world drivers were doing in the IMSA iRacing series that was run during the lockdown period. So that's seriously hot pace. However, as you can see, we're about to have a Sebring sunset. Of course, the very famous 12 hours of Sebring goes into the night, and of course going into the night means the temperatures should cool as the sun goes down and the circuit descends into darkness. So look at that up on your screen there, 75 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature right now, which is nice and, well, 24 degrees Celsius in old money, or however you want to look at it. So pretty friendly track temperature. When the track temperature gets too high, that can sometimes make grip and tire degradation an issue. But with these nice cool track temperatures, we should see some really hot lap times. As we see, speaking of, oh my word, Javi Utrera sets a 1 minute 55.0, so we're ever so close. Ozzy, do you think we're going to see a 154 by the end of this session?
I think so, yeah. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't go so fast. Utreras is not going to be the man, as he saves it nicely but screws up his lap. However, these guys are getting later and later into the session, and with it being an evening, it's already 10 past 8 p.m. virtual standard time here at Florida. That means the track is technically cooling off just a little. And I could see guys like Paulo Munoz, Abner Acosta, Rodrigo Mies getting very close to that magical 1 minute 55 barrier and break under it too. And just one more thing about Javi. He was really nowhere at the start of the season. He was really mediocre. And then suddenly, last round, he found an unbelievable pace. He was able to win at Road America. So, his late season pace, whatever he's done, it's really worked out for him. And as a result of that, we have another new key player at the front.
Absolutely. You look at the top four covered by less than 0.2 of a second. So I think we're going to be on for an absolute barnstormer of a race. Now, these cars, if they're given 100% of their fuel cell, they would run the entire 60-minute race without the need for a pit stop. They would cough over the line. But the drivers only have 65% fuel cell, which effectively forces their hand to go in for a pit stop. Now, it's highly unlikely that the drivers will take tires. They will go on the same tires to the end of the race. However, they will need to stop for fuel. So expect them to run anywhere up to about 40 minutes through the race. But there is a little bit of flexibility in there for drivers that maybe want to play a little bit of strategy. But that's going to be really interesting to follow here. Of course, at Sebring, you can get caught if you've just not quite got the pace to get past the driver in front. Overtaking opportunities can sometimes be hard to come by, but that'll be fascinating to watch how our drivers pick that strategy throughout the race.
Indeed, we're riding on board Javi Utreras, and he is coming to the back straight. And speaking of those strategies, later on I'm expecting the leading guys to compete at the last possible opportunity. That is the fastest strategy, as we've often seen, Peter, because there is no point carrying any extra fuel. That's the one thing, and you can also get your strategy so much more accurate by pitting at the last possible moment. So it's really a win-win if you come into the pit as late as possible and try to squeeze out and maybe save some fuel to save some time on the pit stop. Now, there are times when you might want to come in early, like say you have a ding-dong battle right in front of you, like a 5-car battle train, and you're faster than them, but finding overtakes is hard because you're in this big battle pack. So you can pit and leapfrog them during the pit stop cycle maybe, but other than that, expect drivers to come in as late as possible. As we're watching the Chilean Rodrigo Mies on his outlap, I do believe, and then coming onto a fast one with just over 2 minutes left.
Well, he's got his fastest lap time so far, 1 minute 55.169, and look at that, using all of the entrance room going into the very fast turn 1, the left-hander, a really big commitment corner, and then down towards turn 2. It's, well, for me, I remember when Fernando Alonso came here in his World Endurance Championship days, and there's an onboard video of him in the Toyota Hybrid LMP1 car, and wow, I mean, what a breathtaking onboard shot. It's a really special turn there. And of course, you'll see the drivers get so close to the wall as well, and just that getting the last little bit of speed out there, especially here in qualifying when the drivers can really put everything on the line.
Yeah, speaking of Fernando, I wonder if this track is a little bit too twisty for him. I'm expecting him to start turning into the sunset bend at halfway through the back straight, for example, having seen some of his onboards, because that man has a truly unique touch as Abner Acosta goes fastest with a 154.982. So they did it, Peter, and now it's on with the happy hour with the guys like Munoz, Mies, and everybody else out there on the racetrack.
I have to say, I am absolutely astounded. Abner Acosta, well done. That is an absolutely blistering lap time. To beat the 1 minute 55 barrier here at Sebring, that is at the very highest level you can expect. Absolutely extraordinary pace there from Abner Acosta. But what can Rodrigo Mies do? Like you say, it's the happy hour. The track temperature is absolutely perfect right now for setting the fast lap times. Go out there with low fuel, new tyres. That's what any racing driver truly relishes, isn't it, Ozzy? When you get just those perfect conditions as we get Rodrigo over the line, he improves by 1,000th of a second.
No, he doesn't. That's
no, he doesn't. My apologies. I misread that. My apologies.
No
He does not improve. So, well, we'll need to wait and see. Get the others over the line. Checkered is out.
Yeah, Rodrigo just made it over the line, but coming back to your point, Peter, you're absolutely right regarding it being the happy hour, and this is where truly drivers shine, and the fast drivers, the great ones, release these opportunities. When you have a tight battle for the pole position, it's you versus the other guys against the clock, against the time, and now everybody knows that Abner Acosta did it. Why couldn't they do it? Why can't Rodrigo Mies do it? Why can't Javi do it, or Paulo, or Christian, or Michael, or anybody else? They know it's possible now, and I'm expecting them to improve, honestly. Javi no longer on the track, Rodrigo is, and he has time to finish this lap if he times it right. Paulo Munoz coming over the line as well. What can he do here? Just cutting right up close, and 155 flat. He goes second by 6/1000ths of a second, but doesn't beat the 55 marker.
Wow, good. And of course gets that crucial spot. They go 2 by 2, hurrah, into on the pace lap here. So getting on that front row of the grid is just perfect as we see Rodrigo Mies going out of Le Mans corner onto the Ulman straight, opening up a twin turbocharged V6 EcoBoost for GT. Wonderful machine. It just slips through the air like an eel. It's just a lovely styled car. Function and form together as we see Rodrigo Mies pulling out of that lap. So he's done. Do we have anyone else on a hot lap?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we do.
Okay, so that's our drivers. Well, look at that. The top three covered by less than 1/10 of a second. That is absolutely extraordinary. So I think we are, I can confidently say we're going to be in for quite the thriller here in the race. 60 minutes around the Sebring International Raceway. So, Ozzy, why don't you take us through the running order, the starting grid for today's race?
Oh, yeah, certainly I will. Abner Acosta starting from the pole position, going under 55 here with a 154.98, a cracking lap time. Paulo Munoz, he's challenging him in the championship. He's also challenging him at Sebring, second place. Javi Utreras, winner at last round in Road America, starting third. Alongside him will be the man from Chile, Rodrigo Mies. Christian Eisler rounding out your top 5. What can the Iceman do out here in the cool conditions? Michael M. Ross starting 6th on his home soil. Lucas Bacigalupo 7th. Rafael Russo 8th. Horacio Calquin 9th, and Anderson Schmidt rounding out the top 10. And Peter, would you please the next guys?
I will. I'll give you a rest. Luis Pam Jr. Will go from 11th alongside Ted Lowendick. Row 7 is Ignacio Hortal alongside Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. Row 8 is Matt Hilton and Miguel Angel Lopez Torres. Row 9 is Nick my apologies. I'm normally good with Dutch names, but Nick Oitdehag, my apologies for that. Stacey Kyle Donegan and Ken Rodriguez. Ozzy, I think you saw number 19 Nick's name there and thought, yeah, you can do that one, Peter. I'll let you do that name. Threw me under the bus there. Anyway, as we see our drivers just coming to the grid, they're all forming up behind the Porsche 911 pace car. Of course, shares the same name with the Porsche 911 RSR that we're going to see in the race today, but that's about where the similarities end, because in fact the Porsche 911 RSR is the first ever mid-engined 911, and when the Porsche engineers in 2017 changed the layout of the car, moving the engine a little bit further forward from its rear engine position to its mid-engine position so that they could fit a much larger rear diffuser underneath to fit with the World Endurance Championship regulations. And well, it worked, because the very next year they went out and won Le Mans with Michael Christensen, Kevin Estre and Lawrence Vantor, and they've won a few other races as well ever since, including last year's Sebring 12-hour.
Yeah, and I just had a massive deja vu, Peter, because I remember the last time we two were in the commentary booth doing this series, we talked about the exact same thing, and I mentioned, and I will still mention, Porsche still call that a rear-engined race car, because something about the engine sitting on top of the rear axle and there being slightly more of the engine behind the rear axle or something. They had an excuse for it. But anyway, essentially it is mid-engined. Now, an interesting bit also mentioning about these cars is that the Ford has been fastest choice all season long. We've seen the guys on top of the field mostly running Porsches. However, Paulo Munoz with his Ferrari has been pretty good, and Eisler, last time out at Road America, seemed to finally get his Porsche to work. So we might be seeing a little bit more variance at the front than usual.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a good gaggle of Porsches there with a lonely Ferrari. So we're going to see Ford versus Ferrari once more. But I have to say, I was doing some laps here at Sebring in the Ford earlier on, and it really, since the last time I drove it, it's the off-corner traction in that car is really, really impressive. It's a lovely machine, actually. I wish it sounded a bit better. It does sound slightly flatulent, but if it goes fast, you don't mind. But on the other hand, the Porsche 911 RSR, well, even if you're going slowly, well, the noise it makes, it's a four-wheeled musical instrument, really, with that 4-litre flat 6 normally aspirated motor. Of course, that particular version of the car has now been retired and replaced with a twin turbo motor, which doesn't sound quite as good, but I must be honest, I'm warming to it with every IMSA race that goes by.
Yeah, I mean, it takes some time to get used to new cars, and people will always go, oh, remember the olden days, and remember the olden days, and it's remember in the olden days, yeah, okay, things used to be great back in the olden days, but what you didn't have back in the day was things like live timing, for example. What we do have here is a live timing. We have live timing at GSRC.tv for your live timing and scoring, and we have the wonders of internet allowing these people to race against each other virtually. So that's a good thing with the modern day, even if the cars sound a little bit less groovy.
I have to be honest, that has got to be one of the best segues I've ever seen in broadcasting, Ossie. And you're like, we have live timing. Oh, and did you know we have live timing? So you go on, excellent. I love it. I absolutely love it. No, I have to agree with you in that. I would add to that as well, Ossie, that the safety of these cars is, of any real top-level race car now, is just incredible. You see some of the accidents that have happened in the past, and the way that the driver is able to walk away, that's a great thing. And that's, to me, that's never a bad thing, if you can make these cars safer and safer all the time. And of course, they don't get any slower either as we wait for our pace car to lead us along the Ulman Straight, and we will be about ready to go racing here at Sebring International Raceway. You might notice that if you're unfamiliar with Sebring, it's an incredibly flat circuit. That's because it used to actually be a World War II airfield called Hendricks Field, where a fleet of B-17 Flying Fortresses were held.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so we're going around Sunset Bend, and we will be ready to go. Our iRacing pace car will pull away. drivers just getting into their canter now. The pace car is off. And we are green, green, green here at Sebring International Raceway, the home of American sports car racing. Good start from the Fords there as they pile down towards turn one. Whoa, nice, all going in single file. Can sometimes be a little bit of action here, but the driver's incredibly disciplined as they head round turn one and down towards turn two, Ozzy.
Indeed, no incidents at all through the first corner. Can they get through the second corner? Yes, they can. Only thing I saw a little bit of contact between Lopez Torres and Dunnigan, but other than that, they are pretty clean through the first couple of corners and getting ready to tackle on Sebring here, as we have Munoz and Utreras having a beautiful look at each other, but both of them make it through clean under the lights here at Florida and Peter. What a spectacle this is.
Oh, it's beautiful. Sebring with the sun coming down, going into the night with the headlights on. It's if you love sports car racing, this is what it's all about. As they head down towards Tower Turn, waving round from Cunningham Corner, Collier, and then towards Tower, and then we'll be on to the very, very short flying Fortress Straight, named after those wonderful aircraft that lived here many, many decades ago. But they're all in flying formation right now at the front. Two Fords leading a Ferrari and then another Ford. So Munoz in his Ferrari, he is, well, he is surrounded once more. He had to fight them off at Spa, and he's having to do it again here at Sebring.
He indeed does. So Acosta, Utreras, Munoz, Mies, Ross, the top 5 with Iser 6th, Pasicalupo, Russo, Calguin, and Schmid. So those are the 10 guys right now at the top of the field. And I was thinking early on, Peter, that Acosta might be running away with it with his championship history and with the way Utreras and Munoz were getting closer to each other, but Utreras not letting him anywhere. And talking about this championship fight with Acosta, Munoz, and Mies being so tied in it, it's really Javi Utreras who is the little bit of the dark horse here.
Certainly is. Utreras, he's right in there though. You see on this. Oh, and Munoz is off. Munoz is off in the Ferrari. I think he maybe just rubbed the tyre barrier there, but he's been able to get back going again. We'll have to keep a close eye on him to see if that's going to hold him back much. Looking at the right-hand side of the car, it looks relatively clean, so he's maybe just about kept it out the wall, but disaster for Munoz early on in this race, just 2.5 minutes in.
Yeah, and as we are heading to replay here, he comes to main straight, and you're gonna see him turn a little bit too early into turn number 1. Now watch the wall. On the right side first and 10 to the left, he turns too early. He's gonna tap the wall right here, and then he's gonna just miss that tar barrier on the right side, barely, by the skin of his teeth, but he's gonna have some damage on the left side. However, I don't see anything too significant, and as a result of that, he is still in the race, albeit in the 8th place.
Yeah, that's. I have to say, he did a really good job to recover there, not panic. A mistake that could have been a lot worse, actually, but a good presence of mind there, and I'm sure he will live to fight another day. So, back at the front, we're looking at the battle for P5 now between Christian Eisler and Lucas Bacalupo, and it's Porsche versus Ford here. Christian Eisler in the leading Porsche 911 RSR, and he winds up that flat 6 normally aspirated motor with a twin turbo Ford behind him. The Ford goes up the inside, coming down towards Sunset. This is always tricky. Rafael Russo very, very late on the brakes here, riding on board with him. Brilliant shot here from Dougie Beard. Oh, it's going to be tight. Eisler gets squeezed into the wall. Does he avoid the wall just, I think?
He does avoid it indeed, and that's a great heads-up play by Rafael Russo. He saw the gap there, he saw that Eisler was going to be a little bit wider, and then he just swung it in there, and now he has his mirrors all full of Paulo Munoz, who is certainly getting back into it and making this threesome a foursome as they fight for the 5th place. And Munoz certainly, he's in a hurry to get back into the lead. Now the good thing is he's only 5.5 seconds behind. The bad thing is that he's lost the draft. But here is his first task, getting past Christian Eisler, and that was easy. I think Christian recognized that Munoz was going to be a lot faster and just let him by.
Rodrigo Mies on his first flying lap, effectively, the lap 2. already into the 1 minute 55s. Remember, the pole time was just a hair under 1 minute 55, so already going very, very quickly for this early in the race, bearing in mind he'll have a full, well, 65% full fuel cell in that car. So that's a very, very quick pace from me. So watch him. He's only 1.1 seconds off Acosta, our leader right now, with Utreras in second. So the pace is really hotting up. And you mentioned it, Aussie, happy hour. Well, this is we're racing for an hour, and how can you not be happy going around Sebring?
Well, if you have teeth fillings, you're not happy.
Your dentist is happy.
The dentist sure is happy. I mean, after Sebring, he's gonna be like, "Ka-ching! It's the payday of the year after 12 hours of Sebring." But yeah, such a wonderful track. Not only for racing, but hot lapping here too. It's so great to put in a good lap time here. And for racing, it allows you so many opportunities. Like if we're watching Utreras, and he's trying to chase down Acosta, and Mies is right behind him. And with Utreras, he can technically get a good run from Sunset Bend, try it into turn number 1. He can hang it in there, go into turn number 2. You can go half a lap side by side here with ease. And we are watching some side by side here further back with Rafael Russo. He is trying to fend off a rival. In fact, he's trying to get past Bacigalupo here and managed to do so. So Russo now rising back to 5th, as we also have Munoz battling.
Yeah, Munoz is having to use some quite unusual lines there to try and get away around, but he's having to take his time there as well. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, how on earth is a £440,000 Ford GT battling away with, well, basically a two-door BMW luxury limousine? Well, there's 3 letters which we all know in sports car racing. BOP stands for balance of performance. So that's how we can have a BMW, a Ford, a Ferrari, a Porsche, all battling with one another on the track. Effectively, the series organizer will balance their performance. So the faster cars will be slowed down with weight or restricted air restrictor, things like that, or the slower cars will be given a little bit of a benefit as well. So for example, the Ferrari in road trim has 660 horsepower. In race trim, it has 490. Of course, the race car is lighter, but it needs to be pared back in power that much to be on a level with the other cars. The same applies for the Ford, where the road car has a lot more power than the race car.
Yeah, and it applies to almost anything. And interestingly, it's also the way with for example, the Ferrari, which also has a GT3 model, which not only does add ABS, but also has more power, interestingly. And that's the case with many of the GT3 cars. So they have a bit more power than their GTE variants, with the GTE ruleset being a little bit different. But yeah, Munoz is now really on a charge here, trying to attack on Bacigalupo, who's trying his hardest to defend. And once again, Bacigalupo going to the inside. Munoz trying for a crossover maybe here. Careful to not turn in too early. He almost did it again, but he straightened his steering wheel in the middle of the first corner. And as a result of that, Munoz having to hold and wait for now, and as a result of that also, Russo is getting a little bit away from them, so not great in terms of Paulo Munoz and looking for the overtake. And I think he's being a little bit too hasty. I think he's anxious to get back to the front, and he's looking at opportunities where he doesn't necessarily find them and making mistakes in places he should be trying to get good exits from.
Yeah, it's always so frustrating when you've qualified well and you make a mistake early on, and you then get caught up in traffic, and you know you can go faster, but like you say, getting past the driver is in front is another matter than catching up with them. So yeah, and that's where you've got to really stay calm behind the wheel, because exactly like you say, Ozzy, if you get too hasty, particularly here at Sebring where it's so tight in places, and if you just get a little bit overeager on the brakes, and you can end up in real trouble. It's a really tricky circuit to get right, but so satisfying when you do. 10 minutes down already. Munoz back up to 7th place after that little off-track excursion from 2nd. Back at the front, still Acosta leading from Utreras by half a second, so pretty close up at the front, with Mies maintaining the gap at 1.1 seconds. So look at this, we've got 3 Ford GTs running together, almost like in 1966 when they came over the line together at the Le Mans 24 Hours.
Indeed, and meanwhile further back I can report to you that Munoz has finally made the move. Nothing spectacular though, Sunset bent down to the inside and Bacigalupo had to give way. But yeah, here they come across the line right now. That wonderful battle between all of these guys, and indeed Munoz has got him past and he's now trying to chase down Rafael Russo. Meanwhile, further back, it's Anderson Schmid and Pablo Uribe side by side through turn number 1. Who can get in first? Uribe on the inside into the next corner. And he brakes a little bit later, but he brakes too late, slides across, and oh, great heads up by Anderson Schmid there, recognizing that Uribe was going to lock the brakes and slides past on the inside and says bye-bye.
Wow, that was a really good move there because that is just one line through there. So here we go then, riding on board with the BMW of Anderson Schmidt, going round the outside at turn 1. That's gutsy, to say the least. So he's on the outside line now, so he's kind of vulnerable here. Gets on the brakes, sees the Porsche just pop in there, and like you said, amazing presence of mind. Be able to hold the brakes on, get the cutback, and like you say, bye-bye. He is off in that big BMW. Fantastic driving there from Schmidt.
Yeah, and that's why you check your mirrors before you turn into the corner. You come into the braking zone, you check your brake markers. While you're braking, you check your mirrors. And that's exactly why you do it, because you never know when somebody's just gonna absolutely airmail it instead of sending it, just airmailing it down the inside or making a mistake or something. And you have to be aware. Now, of course, somebody could say that, okay, somebody shouldn't brake so late on the inside. They're gonna put someone else under pressure, but that's not gonna leave you any happier to say, oh, I was right, when you're sitting on top of the tire barrier. So yeah, very good job by Anderson to have his head up and be aware of the situation as we are further up front in this battle still. And actually, and quite interestingly, Peter, Rafael Russo has not only run away from Munoz and Bacigalupo, but he's also caught up to the matte black Ford GD of Michael Ross.
Yeah, Michael Ross is... we were talking about that, the stealth bomber, last time I was in the commentary box with you at Spa, and well, it's even more so under the darkness here at Sebring, that slippy black. It's almost like it might have been B-17 Flying Fortresses here, but it reminds me more of a B-52 stealth bomber. It's a brilliant looking machine, that as well, with the... Oh, now, that's Schmidt. That's Schmidt in the 78 car, just going a little bit slowly there. So, coming back to the scene of his fantastic overtake, we're going into turn 1. What's going to happen here? Is he going to clip the inside wall? No, he's going wider. Oh, it's going to be in the same corner where he was.
That's the grass.
Whoa, gee whiz. Oh, goodness me, that's... I swear he must have some Finnish blood in him, Ozzy, because that was a great oversteer moment there.
Yeah, he touched the grass on the right side coming into the corner, and then just, he did a great job of coming off the brake and just allowing his car to kind of not hit the barrier and not slide to the barrier, not try to correct that, but instead just let the steering go and let the car come to a halt, and then wait patiently as the other drivers got by him. So he's lost a lot of positions. I do believe he's now all the way back in 15th place. Meanwhile, further up front, look at these lights heading onto the back straight, and all of them coming to the sunset bend, and the top 3 are still practically covered like a blanket, covered under a blanket. So, you can't really separate these guys so far. And I'm thinking at this point, Javi is thinking fuel. Javi is maybe lifting into those corners, maybe biding his time behind Abner, and I'd be surprised if Rodrigo Mies wasn't doing exactly the same thing.
I think you're absolutely right. And these Fords in particular, they're an interesting car because, of course, there's a relatively small capacity engine, a 3.5 litre V6, but with 2 twin turbos. The Ford call it the EcoBoost engine, which is ironic because they do about 4.5 miles to the gallon. Anyway, but the engine will safely rev to about 7,300 RPM. But actually, anything over 6.5. Oh, as we see a move for the lead, Utrera makes the move into the hairpin, but yes, he makes it stick. Well, he's obviously felt he's saved enough fuel, and he's decided to go for it.
Yeah, way to prove me wrong, Harvey. There, thank you very much. Could have just waited a couple
He's
of laps to
listening.
make me seem a little bit more professional. No, I think he saw the gap honestly, and he was maybe lulling Abner Costa into a bit of a sense of safety there, you know. But Acosta there, in all honesty, he didn't even think there was going to be a move, and he just gave him enough space, didn't want to get out. And Harvey, part of his move could be that, you know, once he surprises you up the inside, once he gets to run, he knows that Abner doesn't want to cover it off too late because Abner is fighting for the championship. Rodrigo is fighting for the championship. Harvey is fighting for this race. And in a sense, Harvey has much less to lose.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting dynamic you get often in motor racing. Like you say, people remember champions more than they do race winner for sure. But if the championship isn't on, yeah, the agenda for Utreras is completely different than Acosta and Mies. And yeah, that's the thing. It's just going to make you approach the race in a different fashion. As we see Munoz still on his recovery drive, he's now putting pressure on Ross in the Black Bomber Ford GT with Russo just a little bit further up ahead.
Yeah, so those guys in a bit of a fight. Russo has gotten past. Ross is next, and then Munoz, as you said, 6th place, looking for the 5th place. Now, how's the gap developed? He's lost another 1.3 seconds since the last time I looked. Now, that's been over the course of about 10 minutes, so it's not so drastic. But I don't think Paulo Munoz can look anywhere higher than 4th place in this race. And he should be recognizing that soon enough. He should be able to recognize and be honest with himself and say, okay, I can't catch up to the leaders. They're going very fast. I wasn't that good in the qualifying either. 2nd place, but not, half a second faster or anything. So right now he's probably thinking, okay, Ross and Russo, those are the guys I'm fighting against, and Bacigalupo behind. How can I make sure I finish this race in 4th place and in the lead of this battle instead of just charging and charging and charging? And the good thing about Munoz, despite being in a bit of a trouble early on, he is a thinking driver. He can think when he drives, and he has the talent and the experience to think. Now, can he put them to good use in a high-pressure championship situation? That's a whole different question.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And he seems to almost be a little bit in a holding pattern right now, is Munoz. But remember, although he's in 7th place, he's only 7.1 seconds off the leader, Utreras. So it is, it's amazing how closely packed this field still is. And I have to say, there's a lot of guys that appear to me, Ozzy, that like they're playing the long game. There isn't too many drivers getting a little bit frantic with the body language of the car. They're all kind of following pretty neatly right now, which kind of thinks to me that they're all just biding their time right now, and maybe on a little bit of a fuel save, because I suppose the tires really, with the temperatures the way they are, I don't think tire conservation is really going to be much of a concern, I suppose.
Well, it is yes and no. Sebring is the kind of track which uses a lot of tires, not only because of its bumpiness, which causes the wheels to spin a little bit more, and bumpy braking zones cause all sorts of trouble for the tires, but also because it has a lot of corners where you turn while you're on the throttle. You have a lot of curving exits, like this one here, for example, out of the hairpin. You are actually turning a little bit left and a little bit right while on the throttle. That's going to use up the tires. Same thing once you come out of Cunningham, the double left-hander. That's a flat-out corner early on. Good luck later on, because you're going to have a lot of trouble as Munoz goes up to the inside once again.
Absolutely, Munoz getting it done there, going into Cunningham Corner, now going through Collier down towards Tower Turn, having to go slightly defensive. Michael Ross doesn't look like he's going to give it away straight away as they head onto the Flying Fortress Straight, but he's got it done, which is good. Also, these cars, these GTE cars, they're certainly very sophisticated machines. On board of any of these cars, the driver actually has the option to play about with the level of traction control assistance that they would like, and as the tire does drop off, of course they can have a little bit more traction control assistance if they wish to have it. If they really wanted to, they could adjust it from corner to corner if they really wanted to, but yeah, very sophisticated machines, and you'll see some of the very best drivers playing about with that as they go along.
Yeah, I remember when these cars first came out in 2017 on iRacing, and they came out on the week that they held the Le Mans 24-hour race there. Excuse me, the 24 hours of French countryside, of course. Don't want to get into trouble here. So, uh, getting into that race, the cars were a new thing. There was a Ford and a Ferrari back then, I think, only the Ford and a Ferrari. So we picked the Ferrari with our team and we played with the traction control. And now, of course, 5 days to practice for a 24-hour race. I think I logged about 30 hours during those 5 days. Just driving, getting the setup done. And you can imagine practicing for Le Mans. That's not fun. That's just basically a grind because you have to make the car as fast as possible and getting used to a new car and blah, blah, blah. So the first thing I did, I turned the traction control all the way off, made my setup, and then told the guys, oh, and we have Lopez Torres as well, heading into the hairpin, I do believe, and trying to fend off. I'm trying to look at who it is. It's one of the Punto CL drivers, and it is Horacio Calguin, who he's trying to fend off into Cunningham Corner, I do believe, Peter. I'm going to continue later on the old stories. Let's have a new story here. Calguin going wide. Let's not.
Oh, as you see, it's getting a bit. Oh no! It's getting a little. I was just about to say this is getting very, very busy and a little bit frantic there. There's oh dear. Is that Calquin there in the Ferrari?
No, that's Hortal. That's Ignacio Hortal. Calguin is gonna be. Yeah, Calguin is gonna be ahead of him.
Yep, so let's have a look at what happens here. They were getting very kind of antsy, I would say. The body language of these cars is completely different to what we've seen in a couple of laps ago. And we see one of the Fords spinning off there, and it just kind of creates a little bit of a chain reaction. And oh dear, the Ferrari there getting run into the back of as they go past the area of the Sebring International Circuit where, well, it's incredibly infamous for wild partying.
It is, and that was Ted Lowendick hitting the back of Ignacio Hortal there as they had a bit of a check-up moment. Ted Lowendick thankfully getting away with that one. Ignacio Hortal sadly losing a lot of time. And you were saying the cars are getting a bit antsy there, Peter. Well, so far, a little bit surprisingly, we only have one driver out of the race, and that's the number 19, who is...
Oh, no, thank you. I'm a man called Nick in the number 19 car.
Yes, Nick Uitehag.
Yeah, and the thing is, I pride myself on being able to normally pronounce Dutch names. I spent a lot of time in Holland over the years, and I love the country, and I love some of the names, but that one is above my level, I'm afraid. So I'm very, very sorry, Nick, that I can't pronounce your name, and I'm very sorry that you're out of the race. Anyway, back to the racing. Utreres, Costa, and Mies in their Ford flying formation, still inseparable on the timesheets. Interestingly, though, Ozzy, they're running in the kind of low to mid 1 minute 56s, which we know that they've got a lot more pace than that under their car, and being in the dark's not going to slow them down. They all know the circuit so well, they'll know it on muscle memory, and in fact, being in the dark can sometimes almost help with the lower temperature to help the tires work better. But just seems to me like they're all biding their time, but being that far off their outright pace, you wonder if that's actually worth the fuel saving benefit.
I'm not sure it's fuel saving at this point anymore. Maybe it's a tenth or two down to fuel saving, but mostly at this point it's just a tire wear. Yes, your fuel is coming down and you're lighter, but you're also not as fast anymore down to the tire wear, and you're gonna lose that best grip of the tire after about a couple of laps. That's why they only do 2 or 3 laps in qualifying at most, and once you lose the best grip, well, it's gonna be getting more and more slippery with each passing moment. And that's why you see the top 3 still so close. None of them have really, tried to take those unnecessary risks. And at this point, it just looks like Javi is trying to maybe create a bit of separation to Abner, but Abner's doing nothing with it so far. Abner's not gonna want to let him go, and he's just holding there, biding his time. Same with Rodrigo Mies. I'm actually interested to see if Rodrigo has any more pace, because last season he had a great fight for the podium here with the eventual champion Jesse T. Stevens. here at Sebring, but right now he's not maybe looking quite as fast. In qualifying, he was the slowest out of these three, and in race conditions, he's not as quick so far. But yeah, he's still very much in the mix here. So I'm looking at these three guys, and I can't help but wonder who is playing mind games, who is playing strategy, and who is just trying to maximize each and every lap time without worrying about the fuel so much.
Yeah, that's the bit that is so difficult to tell, isn't it? Who's feeling comfortable there and who is absolutely on the limit. Both, if you look at the body language of these drivers, it's of the car. Sorry, my apologies. They all look very, very comfortable to me at this pace and pulling away from the rest of the field. Russo in fourth, a full 5 seconds off the back of Mies in third. So yeah, they're looking comfortable and they're running a very, very strong pace in these in these three Ford GTs. Of course, this car only spent 4 years in service in the real world, came in 2016, of course, winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans at the first opportunity, and had 19 race victories in just 4 years of operation, which was incredible, and only one ever held and raced in private hands, which was the number 85 wins Ford GT. But speaking of wins, I suspect if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would probably put my money on a Ford GT winning this race, because these three guys are absolutely dominant so far.
Speaking of wins, there is a great story about 1970s Formula V racing with Keke Rosberg driving back then, and he was sponsored by Wins. As we have a car coming to the pit lane, that's Stacey Kyle Dunigan, who is the first one to opt to the pit stops, and allegedly there were some, and I'm saying allegedly, according to a story, that taught Keke a lot about not trusting sponsors blindly.
Well, Stacey Kyle Dunigan from Georgia. Well, after this race, Stacey's going to have to, I guess, going to have to board the midnight train back home.
What?
Never mind.
No, explain it.
A musical reference. There's a song called Midnight Train to Georgia. Yes, my apologies. Sorry, terrible joke, Ozzy.
I should have known that. I should have known that, actually, because come to think of it, that now rings a resemblance. I was just so confused at the first. And, it's a great thing because we, allegedly, we also have viewers. So hello to both of you. And if somebody's losing the joke there, yeah, exactly. Hi, Mom. So, both of our mothers watching the race and face palming right now. But yeah, if they're lost on the reference, then we can easily explain. And if you have any questions actually from the chat, or anyone watching is confused and want to know more about racing, more about this series, more about racing history maybe or something, then feel free to throw us a question. I at least have the chat window open so that I can answer most of them as the race goes on. Of course, we're going to be mostly focusing on the racing action here, as Miguel A. Lopez Torres as well makes his way to the pit lane. So the cycle has started, and I must say, surprisingly early for these guys.
Yeah, maybe just when you're a little bit further down the pack, you sometimes just have to roll the dice and see if there's any kind of benefit to trying a slightly alternative strategy, because if you can't beat them on lap time, that's the other trick in the book to try and do that. We're just about to approach half race distance of this 60-minute race, and to quote the great Murray Walker, half the race gone, and that means there's half the race left. One of the many famous Murrayisms. In fact, Ozzy, I was listening to Murray Walker's autobiography on an audiobook read by his good self this week, and I have to say that made moving house a heck of a lot easier, listening to Murray's dulcet tones and hearing his life story.
Indeed, and that's we had actually more shorter-lived. He's still alive, thankfully, but shorter-lived as an F1 commentator, a guy called Matti Kyllönen, who started out in the early 90s and went on throughout the 90s and mid-2000s, back in the heyday of Mika Häkkinen and, of course, also Kimi Räikkönen's early days. And he was famous for his similar Murrayism sort of things, like mistaking, the pit stop took 7 liters and they put in 120 seconds of fuel in, for example. So he kept messing up his words as well. But yeah, a Murray Walker audiobook about his own life, narrated by the man himself, sounds like something I need to get, honestly.
I'll send it to you after the broadcast, Ozzy. Remind me. One of his other ones as well was, and this would be apt for the three Fords at the front. He said one of them. He says the car in the front is unique, except for the one behind, which is identical.
Yes,
Which is
exactly.
very good. Oh, we've got one of the Porsches coming in to pit lane right now. Who is this? Say again. We've got Pablo Valenzuela Uribe in the number 23 Porsche 911 RSR coming in for a wee splash of fuel, and then we'll be back going in a jiffy.
Yeah, Uribe just coming to the pit stop early on, opting to take another early stop, and this is the kind of strategy you see more often in the midfield than in the front of the field, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First is that usually these guys, and this is not a knock on Pablo by any means, but usually the guys at the front are at the front for a reason, and one of those reasons is that they have very little tactical understanding, strategic understanding, wow, that's a difficult word, of the race conditions, and as a result of that can pick their strat a little better, whereas the mid-pack guys might be thinking that, okay, I'm gonna just split the race in half, nice and easy. But the other reason is that in the middle of the field, you might have so many battles developing, might have so many different situations, and you're just trying to gain an advantage over your competition. So that's the other thing, and thinking that might be the way to do it, as we discussed before the broadcast started, Peter, or indeed at the start of the broadcast even.
Absolutely, and for our drivers coming in for the front runners, like you said, it's likely that they're going to run all the way to the end of the fuel window, if you like, try and run the car as light as possible, and therefore when it's at its fastest. But that with about roughly 2/3 distance, it's going to be anywhere in the next sort of 8 or 9 minutes or so for these drivers. After then, they really are getting to the very last breaths of that fuel tank, and then they'll come into the famous pit lane here at Sebring, which I think I love about Sebring as well is the garages, how they have all of the Sebring 12-hour winners, the manufacturer and the nationality of that manufacturer. And of course Porsche have won more races, more outright victories in the Sebring 12-hour than any other manufacturer. They have 18 victories, including 13 in a row between 1976 and 1988. Next along is Ferrari with 12 victories.
Yeah, I wonder where TVR is on that line.
0, I think.
Yeah, it's actually a little surprise that TVR never went into sports car racing like properly. Would have thought they would have maybe, found some success and commercial value from there, but you never know. Maybe they'll do it one day.
You never know. There's always someone who wants to try and revive TVR. But probably what's even more impressive was Audi. Audi have 11 victories here at the Sebring 12-hour, which, I mean, when you consider the percentage of how many years they were in operation with their LMP1 cars, it's an exceptional statistic. And of course, Tom Christensen, the driver with the most victories here at Sebring, with 6 outright victories, and his Audi teammates Dendo Capello with 5, and my fellow Scot Alan McNish with 4.
Yep, and meanwhile on 4th place we have Rafa Russo and Paulo Munoz right up against each other, with Munoz taking a little bit longer than I anticipated catching up to Russo, but honestly, Rafael is driving a great race. He's driving a very understated race in the BMW, but considering his qualifying time was a 55.8 almost, rounded up, and he started in 8th place. The man is now sitting in 4th, and not only sitting in 4th, but sitting there comfortably. So he's found something of the race setup that's really working out for the Brazilian.
Certainly is, yeah. Of course, he's the top non-Ford driver, if you like, and clearly the Ford is the car to have right now. But yeah, he's the top BMW by some margin as well, and he's got the Ferrari of Munoz starting to chase him down. But like you say, Ozzy, he looks very comfortable there indeed, and with the particularly that BMW, once the weight comes off, it really starts to light up. It's a wonderfully stable car, that BMW M8. Of course, front engines, it's got a big V8, twin turbo V8 in the front of it, and yeah, it's a really friendly race car. Actually, I like it.
Yeah, I'm not that big of a fan, but then again, I'm never a fan of front-engine GTE cars because they feel so bulky to me. Like, you would think that someone like me who absolutely loves a fast steering would love a front-engine car because you got the weight in the front. But I prefer the agility of mid-engine race cars. For me, if it has the engine in the middle, it's a proper race car, and it feels so much better to drive. As we're watching Rodrigo Mies chase down Abner Acosta, and we can continue our talk about engine placement later because I'm noticing something, and that is Javi Utreras. He's gotten a little bit away. Not only that, but Mies is seemingly having easier and easier time behind Acosta as the laps roll along, and he's even faking a look to the inside.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well spotted, Rodrigo Mies. He's putting his pure race car with the mid-engine to absolute use here. Whoa, yeah, this is the closest we've seen him for quite some time. And Acosta, well, he'll be the 4GT of Mies will be very, very large in his mirrors. And all the while, that's making him. All the while he's looking backwards. He's not looking forwards, and that's surely not helping lap time. As we see, Munoz is in his Ferrari, just ready to fuel up in his pit box, and then he will be off and going again as we see the leading BMW of Russo just getting away in front of him, so not much change there. So the battle is reset and they will go to the finish.
Indeed, and that's most of our field now having pitted. You saw Russo, Munoz, Ross, Bacigalupo, Eisler as well on the pit lane there, and that leaves the leading trio coming into the pit lane this time by. We're expecting, assuming, and really, almost hoping, because if they go for one more lap, I think they're going to run out of fuel here, and you don't want to push your car past the finish line here. Just ask a certain Australian.
Yeah, and of course, remember last time when we commentated together at Spa, one of these 4GTs did run out of fuel on the line, basically, and had to furiously fuel save and drop back for the closing laps, and it ruined the race. So, yes, you're absolutely right. And with these particular cars, they have fantastic information of your miles per gallon and the amount of laps. It even predicts how many laps you've got left in the tank, which is incredibly useful when you've got to focus on driving. So let's see. Oh, Mies is going to stay out, but now hold on. Acosta has gone in, and Mies, and also Utreras. So Mies is the only man to go an extra lap. That's fascinating.
That is really fascinating. He was on the back of the queue for the entire duration of the race, and we were wondering earlier on if it was strategy or if he was just a little bit slower, not able to find an opportunity. But now Mies is gonna take the overcut, and with no traffic in front of him, that could really play dividends. I don't think he can catch up to Javi, but he could leapfrog his championship rival Abner Acosta here very well with this move. Coming out of the pit lane, Utreras and Acosta come right behind each other. In fact, Acosta caught a little bit up to Utreras, I think, during the course of the pit stops. But now the real question is, where will our Chilean man be? Can Rodrigo Mies come to pit lane, take his fuel, and come out in the lead?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Of course, he was running in the at the back of that formation flying forward pack there, and just if you're at the back of a three-car pack, you're always going to be the one with the greatest fuel-saving advantage. So this is going to be fascinating to see. Also, you're speaking about talking of Australians. I think Utreras is running a Mark Webber replica helmet, from what I can see. I might be mistaken, but it looked awfully like the Mark Webber's yellow, blue, and red Bull helmet.
Oh, don't do that to our director, because he can't get a helmet shot into the broadcast because these cars have no rear mirrors.
You'll have to believe me.
Yeah, I choose to believe you, at least. So yeah, that's the problem with these cars, as we are expecting Mies to come into the pit lane, and indeed he is, and that looked like a fast lap. Okay, so it wasn't like he was furiously fuel saving or making a mistake of staying out one lap longer. That is strategy, and he is not sputtering at the pit lane straight either. In fact, he's doing a very clever thing there on the pit lane. He's going a little bit over the speed limit, And the way he's doing that is that he's going up and down with his gears while having the limiter on, which accelerates the car a little bit with each gear change. And that's something we used to do back in the Glacier Racing days, as well as in some races you would just, press the clutch and let it roll. But here is Mies on his way, and here come the leaders.
Oh, looks like oh yeah, look, Utreris and Mies. Well, the overcut is. Oh, now there he goes. There goes Mies. He's completely leapfrogged.
Wow.
Not one, but both of them. Wow, that is. Ozzy, I can't believe how much of a difference that has made. But there you go. Mies has effectively gone from third to first with just running one more lap on that light fuel load.
Yeah, and that's 1.7 seconds faster pit stop as well. You just saw it on your screens between Mies and Utreras, and that's gonna make all the difference. Now, my real question is, did Mies under fuel? Does he have too little fuel? Because that was a really a mighty fast pit stop. And yeah, also a great question there, as we are watching these guys through the back actually battle. So that's Munoz and that's Russo.
Yeah, Munoz and Russo, and trading a little bit of paint there. And you have to be honest, in a punch-up, this is a flyweight Ferrari and a heavyweight, a big Munich bruiser, this BMW, and you wouldn't want to take a punch from that thing. It's a big old car, but Munoz just gets by in the Ferrari using the agility of that machine, and whoa, getting right on to the gravel there, heading out of now that was heading out of again the B and Bend, heading down into Le Mans. Now they go sorry, my apologies, they're in Gendaby and now heading into Le Mans curve and on to the Almond Straight. So who's that? Plastico Lupo's gone off now. Sorry, I got confused with the paint scheme. He's got exactly the same paint scheme as Mies, and I thought that might have been Mies there. My goodness. So let's have a look.
No, it's not the same. It's the other way around with the colors.
Oh, of course. Oh, well spotted.
And that's a significant contact. Wow, that's Plastico Lupo going way out in the tower corner. And as we were talking about paint schemes, and he did that all by himself too. He lost it on the entry and then just overcorrected into the wall. And that's going to give a couple of positions. That's going to give one to Christian Eisler. So yeah, the Punto CL Racing guys, in case somebody's wondering, is Punto CL Racing Blue has the primary blue paint scheme with white and red highlights, whereas the red team has it the other way around.
There you go then. That's it. And in the dark here at Sebring, incredibly easy to get them confused. So apologies for that one, viewers, as we see Ted Lowendijk in his Ferrari pressuring one of the Porsches there. Ted Lowendijk going heavy into turn 2 and 3 there. Really tricky section. You got to get the car slowed down, get it pointed round, and then I find this one here. They're heading out towards Gurney Bend, a really tricky corner, and heading onto the straight down towards Hairpin Bend. And it was here at the Hairpin where Sterling Moss, in his first ever appearance here at the Sebring 12 Hour, actually had a photographer hand him a bottle of Coke as he went by. He finished the bottle of Coke, and then on the next way round he threw the empty bottle at the photographer and then carried on with his race.
That's quite rude.
I would agree. You're a photographer.
Yeah, exactly. And look at the battle we have here, though. I mean, Torres, Uribe, Lowendijk, Schmid, and Calguin. All of those 5 guys in the same pictures, and it's surprising to see Horacio Calguin so far back, even with the troubles he had earlier on. But he's gonna get a great run on Schmid now, maybe, as he's looking for a chance here on the Flying Fortress straightaway. And Horacio Calguin, speaking of his history, I've mentioned this a couple of times on the broadcast as he looks to the inside, but he's an ex-Counter-Strike pro player, so he certainly has his reflexes and his clutching ability in order. So, and he drops the ball. Clutch or kick, and he just got kicked.
Yeah, that was a very infectious commentator's curse you had there. That being said, he used those reflexes to save that. Anybody else would have spun there, I'm sure.
Yeah, indeed so, but still, I'm sorry, Horacio. That's entirely on me, I'm afraid. And the battle still continues though throughout because Miguel Torres, Uribe, and Lowendick still in the mix, and all of them furiously fighting. And I like this because in this fight we got three different makes of cars. You got the BMW in the lead in form of Torres, and then Uribe right behind him, and then Lowendick in the Ferrari. Of course, Uribe in his Porsche is right in the middle here. So, just goes to show the differences between the cars, but also how well the balance of performance actually does its job.
Does indeed. I would argue that the the balance of performance in iRacing can often be a little bit more accurate than in the real world. But of course, on iRacing, a lot of the developers of this software, they're all sim racers themselves as well, and they can get a lot of data in each car. Of course, the people setting the balance performance can get behind the wheel of all the cars and get lots of data together, which of course in the real world cannot be done, of course. And you're not going to have, as we see, look to the leaders as Utreras looks up the inside of Mies at Sunset Bend. That's really, really tight. But Mies gives him the room very fair. But he's in the wall. He's in the wall. And, well, I would say Mies gave him the room, but Utreras did not return the favour. And a flashing of the lights usually means that's normally code for I am very upset. Utreras spins!
Oh, and they wreck once again, and Utreras is out in turn number 1, and he got absolutely turned around by Abner Acosta. So Utreras is around, and now it's Mies and Acosta, and Mies finds himself back in the race lead. What a development here on lap number 23 and 24, and now it's Mies flashing the headlights once again, and we see a replay here. So out of the last corner, Mies gets pushed into the wall by Utreras, flashing his headlights. Then into the first corner, Acosta is gonna get a great run, as we were watching the incident further back. Acosta's gonna get a great run, and he's gonna just gently tap Utreras around, which is enough to make him spin. And as a result of that, later on, Mies was able to get a run on Acosta because Acosta was slowed down by the incident. Now, my real question is, how much damage does Mies have? And now, with all this going down, does this mean we're gonna see more?
Well, certainly the cork has flown out the bottle here. It's all happening here at Sebring International Raceway. Fantastic stuff, and well, it almost felt like Acosta was Acosta was handing out some vigilante payback on behalf of Mies after getting squeezed into the walls from Utreras.
Yeah, vigilante justice there almost, but I don't think he would do that. I don't think he would do that kind of thing. I think it was just a confusing situation, and in the dark and getting side by side, it was one of those things where, of course you didn't mean it seriously, but it almost looked that way. Yeah, almost looked that way. I don't think though Acosta would have any reason to give a payback in favor of Mies, because these two cars are still fighting for the championship.
They are indeed, and of course when it gets to this stage of the season, the later part of the season, well, that's when temperatures really get high in the cockpits. We see this, speaking of high temperatures, this it's always the same. Any motor race you want to pick, the mid-pack is where it's always at its fiercest. It's almost like the middle sibling syndrome, where you've always got to fight for your attention.
Yeah, and once again you see these battles here with Ted Lowendick, number 72, of course, being where he usually resides in these races, around top 10, around these positions. Had a great run the other day, actually yesterday in the Club Sports Series in the GT Force, was leading the race briefly during the pit stop cycle, and I think finished in top 5 as well. But he's right behind Uribe right now. Uribe right in front, and Lowendick trying to follow him home and trying to find another great points paying finish in this race. So far, not so good. Not able to get the run onto the big bend, and as a result of that, I think he'll have to wait a little bit longer before making that overtake.
So we're coming very much into the business end of this race now. Just over 11 minutes to go of this 60-minute contest, and an action-packed day through. Should be about another 6 laps or so, depending on when the drivers come over the line to take the white flag. But, well, it's anybody's race, really. But interestingly, Mies, his fastest lap of the race is significantly faster than Acosta. Acosta, his fastest lap of the whole race is a 1 minute 56.1. Mies is a 155.9. In fact, one of the very few drivers in the 55s. In fact, the only other driver who's done a sub-minute 1 minute 56 lap is Javier Utreras.
Yeah, so that just goes to show you who was fast early on more than anything, but that's a good point actually. Mies has had a great race setup so far. He's been able to run this race the way he likes. We were wondering early on what he was going to do. Well, turns out he was saving so much fuel that he was able to run away from these guys in the pit stop cycle, and that was a tactical masterstroke from Rodrigo Mies. And then we had a bit of drama, which led to Mies and Acosta being all by their twosome in the top two. And interestingly enough, Peter, with all that's happened, it's the championship trio. It's Acosta, it's Munoz, and it's Mies, the guys who were fighting for the championship here coming into this round in places 1, 2, and 3. But it's Mies leading and Acosta second, and the gap between those guys right now 13 points in the standings. 2 rounds after these to go, so it's gonna get even closer.
It is indeed, and yeah, Munoz, I would imagine that he will be pretty happy with this after that incident early on in the race, going back as far as I think 8th or 9th position from my memory, and to now be up on the podium. That's I think he'll take that actually. When he was heading through the gravel and inches from the wall on lap 2, I think it was. So yeah, very, very interesting indeed. But interesting to see if Acosta can put the pressure on Mies. But speaking of Mies' fuel saving, of course, the Ford, the way it delivers its power is quite interesting. It has much lower peak RPM than, say, like for example the Porsche, which revs all the way up to well over 9,000 RPM. As we look at this battle again in the mid pack, very, very fierce indeed. But yeah, I think Rodrigo Mies has been able to use that much lower RPM. Of course, he was in there with the Fords, but you can up change a lot earlier in the Ford and really save fuel, but still keep the car ticking along and save a bit of fuel whilst maintaining your lap time.
Yeah, and that's very interesting to see the differences between the engines in these GT cars and the way they're manufactured, because of course Porsche uses their own different style of engine, the flat 6 I do believe, and somebody's gonna hang me from this, but I'm not that big of a Porsche guy. I think it's our flat 6s, and of course Ford using very different engine, as does Ferrari, as do indeed BMW too. So you know, it's interesting to see how they're balanced to be similar in terms of performance, as we see a replay of there as well with 09 spinning, and that is Matt Hilton having a bit of spin there and managing to get it back in order. But yeah, interesting how such different cars can produce such close racing. It never ceases to amaze me.
Absolutely, yeah. The Porsche 4-liter, you're right, flat 6. It's yeah, it makes a very particular sound boxer engine actually, and it's a beautiful piece of kit. 500 horsepower, but it could produce much more if you let it. And apparently this particular engine in the Ford can make mega horsepower as well if you let it free. But this is, I tell you what, this is going to go down to the wire here. Acosta, Mies, nothing to separate them here. It looks like they're going to have their own battle, and there doesn't Ozzy, it doesn't appear like, if either of them have damage, it doesn't appear to be affecting performance at this stage.
No, it seems to be very great for both of these guys so far. Mies still in the lead, having able to put a couple more tenths between himself and Acosta since the last time I looked, but still Acosta very much in the draft, very much in the mix still. Let's see the lap times here. Mies 56.8, Acosta 57.1. So Acosta, that goes down to just margin of error pretty much, and Acosta, he has the advantage of being able to follow Mies' lines, being able to follow what he's doing, and Mies going very wide here in turn number 2, and that's gonna allow Acosta to catch right up. And the thing is, what you have to remember, viewers, you know this, Peter, but what the viewers have to remember is that these guys are on the very last breath of their tires as well. It's been a grueling 1-hour race, they haven't changed their tires, so each passing moment those tires are gonna scream more and more as the racing gets increasingly intense, and that's gonna mean at some point something's got to give.
Yep, and I tell you what, I thought it was going to give there from Rodrigo Mies coming down into turn 2. and 3, making, like you said, very wide, big mistake. So clearly he's feeling a little bit hot under the collar here, with Acosta putting a lot of pressure on him as they head down into Tower Turn. Very close as they head onto the Flying Fortress Straight, and that little mistake from Mies, that's given Acosta plenty of draft benefit when they get onto the straights as well, and that just allows him to get ever closer and ratchet up that pressure just a little bit more. And I suspect that with a good exit out of Le Mans Curve here, Acosta could perhaps put a move in at Sunset.
He could, but he doesn't have that exit so far. I don't think he's just going to be a little bit too far away. But I noticed something interesting as they came into turn 15 there, just before Le Mans, the start of the complex, is that Abner Acosta put 2 wheels on the right-hander just inside of the curb. And that allowed him to brake a little bit later, curb hop a little, and still make the apex. And that's one of those things you can do if you know the track really well. It's one of those things where you can get a run off the Flying Fortress Straight into the long section of into the long double left-hander. You get a run, you pick down the inside, the guy in front is going to be like, oh, this is not an overtaking place, it's a fast corner, and you absolutely lick the stamp and send it, and you hook the inside tires inside of that curb, and you're going to get past. But it doesn't work unless you can put it right down to the millimeter.
Well, here, we're coming down into the hairpin. I thought that Acosta was going to take a look there, but certainly Acosta being really fair, but really putting a lot of pressure on Mies. He's very much filling the mirrors left and right of Mies all the time, and Mies holding strong so far, and look how close this is. You can almost see the weave in the carbon fibre of that Ford GT of Abner Acosta. 3 minutes and 40 seconds to go until we get to the end of this race, and it is impossible to call right now.
Absolutely, you're right, Peter. I mean, these two guys are having a strategic battle now at the front. They're still biding their time a little. I think Acosta just trying to charge on. Okay, and once again he hooked those inside tires. You were able to see it just there, and he's just trying to maximize his exit onto here, the back straightaway. He's a little bit closer, and I think, Peter, this is nip and tuck on whether he sends it up the inside.
Yep, you can see him just climbing millimeter after millimeter, but Mies defends very well into Sunset. But Sunset, no matter how well you defend there, it's just the way that the corner is shaped, you're always leaving some form of room, and you know, racing drivers, any form of room, and they'll go for it. As we see Acosta, he's going to have a look into turn 1. Is he going to? Yes, here he does. Sticks it on the inside. Is Mies going to shut the door? No, he goes for the wider exit. Well done from Rodrigo Mies there. Very impressive indeed. Gives room to Acosta, but also gets a really good exit and defends that way as well. Brilliant stuff from both drivers.
That was excellent. With 2 laps to go, Acosta sends the warning signal. It has been set. They are now battling. They're no longer waiting for anything. They're now battling. Acosta tried it down the inside into one. Mies brilliantly holding off around the outside. I was gonna say, when you said about leaving room into Sunset Bend, neither of those guys left any room, especially Acosta. His exit, the way he exited Sunset Bend on the inside was phenomenal. I mean, he was just touching almost the inside wall there, being so brave with those heavy bumps that are there, and that's the way he was able to set up the run into turn number 1. Let's see if he does it here again, or if he tries a different game plan. I want to see what happens once they come out of tower, if Acosta has considered this corner as a possible overtaking opportunity. I don't think so. He's not close enough.
No, that would, like you say, that would take a very brave dive. But as well, these guys are so evenly matched, so hard to make that move. But when it comes into both turn 1 and the final turn of Sunset, well, there is that opportunity. But Acosta's definitely closer here. But Mies is just getting just at the top end. Acosta's just able to reel him in. He looks to the inside going into Sunset. Mies shuts the door. Is he able to defend all the way around? He tucks into the wall and keeps his line. But like you say, Ozzy, Acosta's good out of here, heading out the exit. Can he get close enough going into turn one? It's going to be tight. As we head on to the final lap then, white flag is now or never for Acosta. Mies defends as they nearly rub the wall, getting a perfect exit out of turn one, heading into turn two.
Yeah, and on board with Acosta now, briefly at least. We're gonna watch the main straight there, watch all these guys heading to the last lap, then back to the battle. These guys, Abner Acosta and Rodrigo Mies, right in the mix here. Acosta's gonna be very close into the hairpin. He's gonna look to the inside. Mies is not gonna even try and defend. He knows he's well ahead, and Acosta just sends it to the inside, doesn't brake late enough, and Mies is able to turn in front of him once again. Wow. So, on to the last lap. On the last lap we are, and this is excellent, Peter. He still has, by my calculations, Acosta still has 3 overtaking opportunities here.
Yeah, that was absolute perfection on the brakes there from Rodrigo Mies. Not a millimetre too late, not a millimetre too early. And you know what? Fair play to Acosta as well, because so many drivers would just let the brakes off there and make contact into the hairpin and say, oh, it's the last lap. He decided, no, like you say, there are other opportunities and he'll have another go. Make no mistake, but brilliant, clean driving. This is an absolute treat for both ourselves as commentators and fans alike to see such a high level of driving. Close, tight racing, but incredibly fair at the same time. Fantastic.
Very, very fantastic. Acosta here onto the back straight. Mies right in front of him. And as they head to the sunset bend, Mies is already breaking the draft just a little bit. He knows Acosta is mighty close, and this is it. It's now or never. Abner Acosta, is he gonna make it, Peter?
Oh, I don't know. Did they go over the bumps? Just one big wobble there. Oh, Mies gets a wobble. Acosta goes round the outside. Mies thinks he's got it. He's flashing the lights. He does have it. Over the stripe he goes. He wins by a whisker from Acosta.
Wow.
What a fantastic drive from Rodrigo Mies. He sat... Well, that pit stop, what turned out to be pivotal, but incredible defense there from Rodrigo Mies in that last part of the race.
Yeah, and still a battle going on for P number 10 further behind them. Lowendick has now gained the top 10 position with Uribe right behind him. Lowendick goes to the inside to defend, then goes back to the outside. He's weaving a lot in front of him. He tries to defend Uribe, flashing his headlights for a good reason. Is Uribe gonna try and send it to the inside? Yes, he is. To the second apex he goes. He's not enough alongside, but he's gonna still hold it there. Uribe, he's gonna get by that Lowendick on the inside in the last corner. Lowendick has a run, but it's not close enough to the base straight, and oh my, Uribe takes it on the final lap. Ahead of the weaving Ted Lowendick. He was slick, Ted Lowendick, this time too, but he wasn't quite slick enough. He didn't have the grip, and as a result of that, he got tricked the trick.
Yeah, that was Lowendick. He just made that tiny mistake. Well, what a race. We're going to take an incredibly short break here on the Global SimRacing Channel, and we will be right back with race results and post-race interviews. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Sebring International Raceway, where we have just been treated to an absolute thriller under the twinkling night sky here in Florida. Before we have our race interviews, let's have a quick look at the race results. So, confirming then, Rodrigo Mies in the number 88 car, beating Abner Acosta by just a whisker, 0.2 of a second going over the line. Paulo Munoz in the Ferrari, a brilliant recovery drive from him after that early incident, able to fight back up onto the podium. Brilliant stuff from him. Rafael Russo was fourth with Javi Utreras in fifth. He had the pace to win, but unfortunately one slight error late on in the race cost him dearly. Michael Ross in the Black Bomber Ford in the 67 machine, he was sixth, with Christian Eisler in seventh. Luis Pam Jr. was eighth, with Lucas Bacigalupo in 9th, and 10th Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. And Ossian, your turn now for the rest of our runners.
Indeed, Ted Lowe and Dick Chast losing out that battle against Uribe, finishing 11th ahead of Anderson Schmid. Miguel A. Lopez Torres 13th, Horacio Calguin 14th, with Dunnigan 15th, Rodriguez 16th, 10-year lease of retirement. Chast 3 drivers despite it being Sebring. Those are Matt Hilton, Ignacio Hortal, and Nick Wittehag, rounding out your 19-driver field. And next up, I think we have already time to talk to some of our great heroes here, some of the drivers who were able to conquer Sebring. And first up, Peter McKay is going to talk to our race winner.
Rodrigo Mies, that was an absolute thriller. And I think you ambushed them with your pit strategy. Tell us about what was going through your mind with that.
Yes, hello guys. It was an amazing race. When I realized that I didn't have a good quality, I took the strategy that live and coast the whole race until the pit stop. I charged like 34 liters of fuel, and I had to live and coast even after the pit stop, so I didn't know if I was going to make it. So absolute thriller. My heart is like beating so hard now. But yes, a good win, and yeah.
A fantastic win indeed. Now, tell me, what was more of a worry for you? Having Abner Acosta being all over the back of your car and looking to overtake, or running out of fuel? What was more scary to you at that point?
At that point, I I was with one eye in the relative and another in the fuel, and a third eye on the track. So I really don't know what was the worst, but I was so scared in a moment when I got out. I saw that I was in front of the two guys, and like 5 laps later, I realized that I didn't know if the fuel was enough, So I think the final part when Javi attacked me and I had Avner in the back, that was really the worst part.
Certainly was. Tell us a little bit about that. You were coming out of Sunset Bend, heading back onto the front straight. It looked like you got squeezed a little bit into the wall. Is that how you saw it? Rodrigo? Do you have a comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I was saying, going into the going out of Sunset Curve, it looked like you got squeezed into the wall a little bit by Javier. Is that how you felt it went down?
In the moment, I was very angry. We were side by side at the last turn with all the bumps. It's a little bit hard. to do it side by side, and Javi was almost clear, but not clear. I have like the nose of the car side by side, and he goes wide and push me into the wall. But for my luck, I didn't have many damage, so the car was still able to push. But later, Javi said sorry, so it's all okay. He said his car had a lot of understeer.
I see. Well, Rodrigo, thank you so much for coming to join us in the commentary box here on GSRC. And go and enjoy your win. Congratulations. And we look forward to having another chat with you very soon.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so next up, we have our second place finisher, Abner Acosta, who is with my esteemed colleague, Ossian Puaka.
Yes, thank you, Peter, and welcome, Abner Acosta. First of all, you started from the pole position, but second place is a great defensive story for your championship, especially what happened early on or late on in the race. It looked like there was going to be some trouble, but in the end, you made it clean. So, first of all, tell us about your race.
Hello, guys. Yeah, it was a good quali lap for me. Especially with the last couple of weeks, I've been really struggling with pace. And the race went pretty good. Me, Javi, and Rodrigo kind of got away, and we were very close in pace. I think Javi was the faster car on track by a little bit. I want to apologize to Javi for that contact at the end. I don't know. I've looked at the replay and I don't know. It seems like he slows down a lot, and I just barely touch him. So I apologize for that. I mean, I know that's not gonna fix his race, but and besides that, happy with a second place finish. Wish I would have gotten the win, but I can't complain with a second.
Yeah, so how about moving on from here? Rodrigo Mies was able to grab the win. He is going to catch up to you a little. You're going to run away a bit from Paulo. We have 2 races to go next week at Le Mans. How do you think that'll turn out? Because it's a very, very different challenge from everything else.
Yeah, well, 2 of my best tracks were Road America and this track, so I guess there's a little glimmer of hope now that in this track I feel like I got some of my pace back. I'm not sure. I did put in a lot of practice, so I'm just, I'm just gonna do what I can do, which is keep putting the practice for Le Mans and the next 2 tracks, and just try to continue to fight.
Well, we can all wish you good luck with that fight, Abner. And well, unless you have anything to add, then feel free to say anything in English or your native tongue of Spanish.
I'll go with English. I just want to thank my team, Level MotorSports and PRL for the league, and you guys for hosting and broadcasting and all of that, and everybody that's watching. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for Abner. Pleasure to have you here as always. And last but not least, Peter McKay. He's going to talk to the final podium finisher and our final championship contender.
Paulo Munoz, well. It was certainly an eventful race for you at the wheel of your Ferrari. We'll start off at the beginning. Tell us about that little incident you had in the opening laps.
Hello, guys. Yeah, on the practice laps I was doing before the race, I was actually talking with Rodrigo, and I said, I hope I don't hit the wall on turn 1, because I did that like 4 times in practice. And of course, the first thing I do on lap 1 is hit the wall. So I'm really not happy about what happened, but I can only be mad at myself, not anyone else.
Yeah, it's always that kind of Achilles heel, isn't it? But you had an incredible drive back through the field to third place. Are you happy with that finish after the incident early on?
Well, it's damage limitation, isn't it? I think I had pace to at least fight for the win, but on lap 2, I knew that wasn't going to be possible, so I just wanted to gain as many positions as possible to to still be contending for the championship at the end of the race. And I think I got the best position I could after what happened on lap 2.
Absolutely, we certainly agree. We were very impressed up in the commentary box. Now, once again, you've got your Ferrari up on a podium filled with Fords. I feel like you're holding up the honour for Maranello so far this season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Ford is for sure a much better car. Well, not much better, but it has a slight pace advantage. I think one thing that has been crucial for me is working with Josh Thompson from Williams eSport. He's been helping me with setups and preparing the races and everything. So I think that's been a key part for me being able to contend with the guys in the Fords.
Well, it's certainly working. And before we let you go off and enjoy your podium finish, Paolo, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to live here on GSRC?
Well, as usual, to you guys for the great work you guys do broadcasting these great races. To my family that's watching, my team, Pure Sim eSports, and all the sponsors. And a special shout out to Josh. I know he's kind of sad because he lost a grandparent this week. So the podium's for him. I hope he's watching. It's like 3 a.m. in the UK. But yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you very much for that. And we also send our very best wishes to Josh as well and send him our regards. Well, that's about all that we have time for here on GSRC. But if you enjoyed today's broadcast and you want to take advantage of the Global SimRacing Channel's over 1 million global monthly impressions, you can advertise with us, from official series sponsorships to commercial placements. We have advertising options customizable to suit your company's needs. You can follow the link in the video description to find out more. Also, a huge thank to all the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast, which you can see listed here on your screen. A big extra thanks goes to the wonderful June Lalonde, who provides all of our lovely music. You can see the screen for how to get a hold of more of her brilliant work on Bandcamp. Thanks as always to the wonderful Ossian, Joe and Dougie for their help on today's broadcast. If you'd like to find out more about us here at the Global SimRacing Channel, including upcoming races, you can find it on our website at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media. We have a Twitter, which is at GSR Channel. Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and also an Instagram, which is at GSRC_gram. Also, if you're heading down to the track, you can also represent GSRC by getting hold of some GSRC merch, and you can find that at gsrc.storeenvy.com. Don't forget also to head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well, so that you don't ever miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We also have upcoming races for other series listed up on the screen, so check those out, mark them on your calendar. We look forward to seeing you there. But without further ado, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we will see you on the track.